V-Series is coming to an end, but before we can say goodbye, we need to seal the deal on Clan Selection Plus Volume 2.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got the final reveals for Clan Selection Plus Volume 2, which is of course the brand new Dimensional Police cards with the Zeal archetype. And even though this archetype has created the best meme of 2020, it is actually surprisingly very good, or at the very least, a very interesting playstyle for Dimension Police. But alongside those card reveals, we also saw an interesting update concerning Premium. As I already explained in the previous Cardfight update, that we're gonna get some more information concerning the Premium format with overdress and all the likes and the changes later this week. Now, that has been released in a special type of information stream, or should I say a different way how they're gonna inform us with some extra news or updates or rulings or extra stuff, which is referred to as the producer's notes. Now, I'm not going to go over those producer notes in this video. I'm going to make a separate video that will probably be uploaded a couple of hours after you see this video, where I'm going to go over those notes, going to read them, explain them a little bit and give my opinion about them. So if you're interested in those information and you want to read along, then stick around the channel because that video will come up in a couple of hours. Now, before we dive into the card reveals themselves, I want to say stick around to the end of this video, because at the end of this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the future planning and the direction this channel is going to take. I'm going to talk about what's going to happen in the next coming month directly, and then what's going to happen once Overdress rolls around and we start to enter the actual new era. Because there's a little bit of an in-between between now until Overdress release. There's going to happen something on this channel, and then once Overdress actually releases, then we also have a shift in the tone and the direction of this channel. And I want to explain a little bit what my personal take is on that, and what you can expect for the coming months and the years once actual things start to change. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump straight into these new cards, and we're going to first talk about a brand new Grade 1 for Dimension Police, which is Eye of Destruction Zeal. And Eye of Destruction Zeal has the ability, auto on Vanguard the Vanguard circle. When placed, look at the 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 Grade 2 or greater card with Zeal in its card name from among them, and put them into your hand, and shuffle your deck. This ability may only be used by a card with the same card name once a turn. So it basically is a potential free plus, and it allows you to search for your Grade 2 Zeal or your Grade 3 Zeal, so those 8 targets. It's basically what we've seen before with the top 7 searching for 2 specific cards. It's nothing really new, only interesting enough, they decided to make this a hard once per turn restriction unlike all the other searchers, but at the same time I can understand it a little bit, because there is an inherent synergy between these cards. You want to have them in your soul and you want to write them as consistently as possible. Now, with the Grade 1 out of the way, as there's not really a lot to talk about here except besides looking at the other cards, so let's take a look at the new Grade 2, which is Devourer of Planet Zeal. And Devourer of Planet Zeal has an interesting ability which we expected, and it also showcases what Zeal is going to do. As its first ability is act on Vanguard the Vanguard circle. Once a turn, cost counter +1 and rest 2 rearguards. Choose one of your opponent's vanguards and it gets power -5k until the end of turn. If you have Eye of Destruction Zeal in your soul, draw a card. So if you have the Grade 1 in your soul, you can plus of this effect, because you counter +1, you rest 2, you draw a card, which is basically what you need. If you don't get to draw, resting 2 units for a cost of a counter +2 just minus your opponent's 5k power is kind of underwhelming. So you want to have the Grade 1 in the soul at all times, so you want the mulligan to write that Grade 1. Also, as we're going to see with the Grade 3, there is another option to get it into the soul, but it's definitely not the ideal situation. You rather want to write the Zeal on turn 1 immediately. Now, of course, there's another effect on Zeal, which is auto when rode upon by a Grade 3, so it's generic. Choose one of your opponent's vanguards and it gets power -5k until the end of turn. So if you ride a Grade 3, they immediately get -5k, so it's similar to what we have seen with Last Card Revan or with Valios, only it doesn't cost you anything. So it's actually, you can synergize this with any type of Grade 3, so you can play Dimensional Robos or whatever, you can still get that -5k, which is similar to a continuous +5k on the board on your front row, which is actually pretty nice. But the main synergy of this card comes to once we look at the main grade 3 Zeal. So let's take a look at the main grade 3 and then we can understand where the power of the grade 1 and the grade 2 lies and where it comes from and the synergies between them. Because here we have the new main grade 3 for Dimension Police in the Zeal archetype, which is Galactic Beast Zeal. And its abilities are Unknown Vanguard to Rearguard Circle. When placed from hand, look at the top card of your deck and call to the Rearguard Circle. If this unit is on the Vanguard Circle, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and it gets power minus 5k until the end of turn for each marker on your opponent's circles. So if we write upon the grade 2 already gets minus 5k, but then this skill will also at least minus 5k them if you went second, because if your opponent doesn't have any markers, this doesn't really minus them at all. So if you went second, you immediately give them a minus 10k. Now, this is extremely powerful against marker acceleration decks or marker spam decks like Luard. Gurgit not anymore, but there are definitely other archetypes that can superior ride, like Vanquisher or anything that create them out of thin air, like Harry maybe, for example. This deck punishes those decks because you give them a massive minus 5k stack, so they could look at minus 10, minus 50, minus 20 of this skill alone. And if you maybe roll upon the grade 2, that's another 5k on top of that. But another interesting thing about the skill is that you get a free call at the top of your deck once you place it from hand, which is actually not that bad, because it's a Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill, so you can call this to the Rearguard Circle and get another call on top of the board, so you can actually flood the board quite fast, which isn't really the strongest point of Dimension Police to flood the board. They need to waste cards from hand to actually fill out the field, so this is a really nice skill as it's a free +1 in a generic sense. So it could also be used as a nice rearguard unit. Now, this skill in itself is already really nice with the grade 2 that force you to rest 2 units, because you can superior call an extra unit for free, you can rest them with the grade 2, and then you can call more cards from your hand on top of the field, because you got those units for free anyway, so if it's a trigger, you don't really mind to then lose it afterwards. You already got the value with the grade 2 that also minus them another minus 5k power, so you can already see where you can stack these minuses quite effectively. But there's another nice addition about this skill, and that's the fact that it activates once it's placed from hand, and it activates on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, and you get that free call. Now, if you combine this with black, that means you can gain even more superior calls or multi-attack battles out of it, because this works somewhat similar to what we have with Sinbuster and Urbuster, because you can attack with black, then do the superior ride, but because you ride from hand, you can ride Zeal, and then Zeal's effect will then allow you to superior call the top card of your deck and have another attacker ready, and you can use that with Force 1 to then always power it up. But at the same time, you do minus your opponent mid-combo, so it's another passive power buff you basically give to your front row. So there are some really nice synergies between this in its own right, in its own archetype, but then also with other cards within the archetype like black. But that's just looking at its first skill. We also have his second ability, which opens up even more lines of plays and opportunistic options. Because his second ability is act on Vanguard Circle once a turn, cost +1, and put one or more rear guards into your soul. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and until the end of turn, it gets power minus 10k. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, and Devourer of Planets Zeal, aka the grade 2, is in your soul, this unit gets drive +1 for every 2 cards put into the soul for this cost. Now, interesting enough, you don't have to have ridden the grade 2 to gain the drive checks of this ability, because if you have the grade 2 onto the board, you can put it into the soul with this effect, and then it still counts for the full condition to get the drive check, because it already is in the soul before you do the check for if the card's in your soul. So it fixes it a little bit, and this skill also allows you to put the grade 1 into the soul if you miss it for the grade 2. But what you rather want to have is that the grade 1 is already in the soul, because this ability allows us to take a full advantage of the grade 2. Because the grade 2 Zeal allows us to rest our units, then give our opponents minus 5k power, we rest 2 rearguards, and then we can put those rested rearguards into the soul with this ability, and to minus them another 10k and gain another extra drive check, thus negating all the lost value of resting those units, because the grade 2 draws a card, and this card turns one of those units into a drive check, so you break even, but you gain drive checks, so that's extra free power, and you just minus your opponent an extra minus 15k power. But you can put another minus 5k on top of that and an extra drive check if you have 2 of the grade 2s, rest 4 rearguards, put all 4 into the Soul, and then you have an extra 2 drive checks, you minus them minus 20k in total, and that's not even counting his first ability, his on place effect, and potentially riding on top of the grade 2 itself. So this shows you that you can take full advantage of the grade 2 and the grade 3 in total if you combine those skills together. But you don't necessarily have to rely completely on the grade 2 to gain full advantage of everything, because we also have a grade 1 from the previous support, if I remember correctly, which is also an alien card, and that grade 1 allows you to rest the rear guard and it gains an extra 10k power, so it becomes an 18k attacker or booster. It's not that great, but it allows you to gain more value in total of all units in combination with this second effect of Zeal. Now, another nice addition about this skill is that it gives you a whole lot of soul. So you can combine this with Die Dragon and Platinum Ace to use that soul to then make strong beefy rearguards that hit for hard and potential extra crits. And you might think to yourself, how do you plan to attain the 30k threshold to achieve those abilities? Well, it's actually much easier to attain than you think, because you can put a Force 1 marker underneath Zeal and then 1 trigger is enough. But at the same time, you can also go for Force 2 and have a Twin Order beneath one of your attacks. And then once it boosts, it gives a 10k to your Vanguard, and then 1 trigger is enough. Or you can combine Force 1 with a Twin Order, and you're already at the threshold that you need. And this all allows you to draw a lot of cards, superior call a couple of cards, maybe multi-tech if you use Black, but at the same time, you minus your opponent with quite a hefty amount of power. Because as I already explained, it's pretty easy to just minus them 20k power just normally, without relying them to be a spam marker deck. If they are a marker spam deck, then that minus 20k can maybe look at minus 30, minus 40, minus 50, depending on how far you are in the game. So if you're up against Genesis, that is a Uranus build, they're screwed. If you're up against Luard, they're probably screwed. If you're up against Vanquisher, they're probably screwed. If you can survive long enough and then go into this thing and do those shenanigans, they probably are screwed because your numbers, or better said, their numbers, are way too low to guard against your higher numbers while potentially multi-tech while doing everything. So, on first glance, I'm actually pretty happy with how Zeal came out, and it is basically what his old version was, but a lot better in nowadays standards. Now that basically concludes the card reveals for Dimension Police and the card reveals for Clan Selection Plus. And that takes us to the direction of the channel for the next coming months, because we're now in a stage where we're done with V-Series. There are no more reveals for V-Series, and we're now in a stage to waiting until Overdress gets revealed with the first trial decks or starter decks and then the first set. In this time between these two changes of eras, I'm still gonna make some standard content because I haven't really talked about the Clan Selection Plus sets, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I also haven't touched upon the Bermuda set, but I'm going to skip those cards. I'm gonna skip the set review, the set breakdowns, the deck spotlight for Bermuda, because I'm not really interested in that set anymore, and I don't think a lot of the community is interested in this set. Now, this is a different story for Clan Selection Plus, because I still think there's a lot of value within those two sets, and I think there are still a lot of players that are interested in the way those sets works, how the decks plays, and how they function, and how they can build them, and they probably want to see some examples. So I'm still gonna do set reviews for both Clan Selection Plus 1 and 2, and I'm gonna tackle every single build from those sets. So I'm gonna do 24 different deck spotlights for all the main cards. So I'm gonna do one, of course, for Zeal, one, of course, for the new Time Leaper Dragon, one for Spectral Duke, one for the new Narukami, the Blood, and all those cards are gonna get a separate deck spotlight while doing everything. Once I'm done with all that, I'm gonna do one extra tier list, you could say, ranking all those decks from Clan Selection Plus 1 and 2 in a nice order, so people have a good estimate of what they can expect of certain decks and what they might want to play if they want to go for a certain playstyle or a different type of power level between them. And then we get to the Overdress era. Now, as far as the channel goes, in the direction we are going to do everything, not a lot is going to change, because this channel has always been a standard focus, and standard is going to stay the same because standard is going to be Overdress standard. So I'm going to do the same type of videos that I did for standard in V era, but then for Overdress era. Will that mean I'm not going to make any more V era content? No, that's not the case, because we're going to get V collection sets, so support waves for the V series. And once we get those sets, Same type of videos. I'm gonna make review videos for those cards. I'm gonna make a set review for those sets. And of course I make deck spotlights for the different decks that come out of those sets. So if you're a V era player and you want to see more content for V series, don't worry, there's gonna be more in the future once we get actual dedicated support for those sets. Now, in the likes of Premium, I've never really made a lot of premium content on the channel, and I'm not gonna make a promise that I will change that in the future. But if I have the time and there is a deck or a specific thing that comes out of premium that I really like and enjoy, then I'm gonna make content about that. But for as how it is, don't expect that it's gonna be a standard staple within the channel, because it never really was, as I don't really have the time to also make the content for that format, as there's a lot more things you need to know and the details about cards and interaction and decks, and I don't really have the time to explore everything and to basically formulate a good amount of information in a video, because I don't want to make a video about a topic that I have no clue what the hell am I talking about. Now, also another thing, a bonus tip for anybody that's still listening to the channel, you might wonder, what the hell happened to Vanguard Rewind 2020? Now, I'm not gonna talk much about this, and I don't want to make a lot of excuses about everything, but stuff happened and I was a bit delayed. And also, I'm kind of lazy the last couple of months, so I haven't really worked a lot on the video. But that said, I have been working on it, and it's going to come out. When? I don't want to make a direct promise, but I'm hoping that I'm gonna can make a lot of progress tomorrow, and that it might come out somewhere next week. But don't hold me on that one if it doesn't come out next week, because it can happen that we suddenly have a lot of information for Overdress, and it once again I have a week where I need to focus on making other videos, and I cannot focus on the rewind. But the rewind video is coming. It might be a bit late this year, but I think I still want to make that video and still want to release it. So bear with me as that video will release somewhere. But it shouldn't be too long from this video onward, but if it doesn't happen next week, don't lynch me for it, okay? But with it said, that's everything that I want to convey in this video. As again, reminder, later today we're gonna upload another video about the director's note, where I'm gonna read everything and discuss it a little bit. So if you're interested about that and extra information about Overdress and the changes coming, then stick around on the channel, because that video will come very soon. And depending on when you're watching this video, it might already be out on the channel. So if it's out, I probably already made a card on top where you can click it. Further than that, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below about the new Dimension Police card and the Zeal cards, and as well, is there something you want for on this channel once Overdress start, or before Overdress start? Is there something that's missing on the channel that you wish I maybe cover a bit? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leaps. See you guys in the next one!